And we're back to another episode mini episode
Yes.
of Comics Conspiracy. I am one of your hosts. I am GM Paul, and I'm here to talk to you about a very exciting topic today. With us, we have the Human Ramp.
Hello.
You, anything
That's
else you
it.
want to say, man?
No, I just want to say
Just the
hi
one?
to the people at home.
You want to tell them why Seinfeld is the best thing since sliced bread or something like that?
no, Seinfeld is the best sitcom.
What happened to your Seinfeld background? Did you turn it off?
I did turn it off, but since
Yes.
he brought it
Yeah,
up,
yes.
since,
Finally
since he
standards.
brought it up, since he brought it up,
Finally, we have some
we
standards.
can put
geez,
it
there
right back to where it was. I mean,
standards out the window again. Alrighty.
DMCA.
Hey, okay. Getting to more important things, we also have camera Chris here. And
let's try this.
Oh,
It's not working?
not working.
no magic.
No.
No magic.
There
you
goes.
go.
Apparently this is one.
I don't
What
know.
was the and this one?
Yeah, that's going to get the balloons.
The balloons.
Yeah.
I like how they're in
There we
front
go.
of me and behind.
So besides camera Chris doing magic,
We're jealous.
he's also decided our topic for today. We're going outside the bounds a little bit, getting out of the realm of comic books, and we're going into the realms of the films. Still staying in Marvel as we do, because we don't know anything else about anything else. And then
Don't bring him
that's
into
it.
this.
Anything else, though, you want to say, though, before we get going, Chris? Anything at all?
I want to say heart. Does that work?
Here we go.
There it
It
goes.
does work. That's crazy. That's crazy. Chris, why did you choose this topic this week?
Because of a discussion that I had with this guy on Thursday night after his job of managing a restaurant. You might know him. He kind of looks like you.
He's a dick.
I didn't.
You are,
I
you
make
are what
no
you eat.
assertions one way or the other on that. So we were having a discussion, and it's long been my. Do I reveal the topic, or are you going to do?
Go ahead, knock it out of the park. I'll put it up when you reveal it.
It's long been my contention. I was a Thanos fan from the 90s or late 80s. I followed the arc leading up to the original Infinity Gauntlet. I loved it. I was collecting Silver Surfer, which is where most of it happened. And I loved the character. I loved the ominous feeling about him. I liked what they've done to evolve the backstory over the years, with Thanos rising and stuff like that. When they showed him at the end of the end credit scene in Avengers, and everyone thought it was a Skrull, and I was one of the only people sitting there going, "No, that's supposed to be Thanos."
That's the big guy.
Yeah. I was excited, yet at the same time put off. And the topic now for today's discussion is, how did the MCU go wrong by going right to Thanos instead of building other stories first? They could have gone longer. They could have done different stories, but they went for the big galactic universal threat right out of the gate. Instead of a world threat, like you could have had Galactus, you could have had any number of other ones. You could have even had Doctor Doom or Magneto or any of the world threats to Earth and presented it that way and worked your way up to the bigger system of including everyone. And then they could have worked the angles of developing, getting their hands on, first of all, because we know that it's all rights issues, getting their hands on the rights to use the other characters that were needed, like the X-Men, etc., Spider-Man. And they finally got their way into Spider-Man and included him in what was going on. But they could have done so much more. And I think with the level of threat that Thanos presented in the comics, it deserved even bigger than what they gave him. And once they hit that mark, for me, Everything else they do from that point forward kind of loses its threat, its luster, all that kind of stuff.
So, from what I hear, is Thanos is the greatest villain for you in Marvel Comics. Is that
I don't even know that I would necessarily say that he's the greatest villain. I just think the paradigm of having him as this universal threat to the point where you've even got people like Galactus, Eternity, and all the cosmic beings that teamed up to try and take him down. He was worthy of that level of threat. And yet, and again, this serves more to they didn't really do justice to what the level of threat was in the movies for Thanos and what the Infinity Stones meant, to where you have Captain America being capable of holding off a hammer fist from Thanos. And in the original Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos merely bitch slap backhands Captain America to death.
yes, he
And
does.
so I just think that it wasn't handled with the reverence that it needed to be handled with. I said this at the time, and especially after Infinity War came out in theaters, and I had a bunch of people asking me because a lot of people knew that what a big Thanos follower fan I was. And I had people asking me to explain it to them, even leading up to that, like, what's the point of this character? Because they hadn't really done much with him other than post-credit scenes, mid-credit scenes, and things like that. And I had people asking me, what's the point and where does he come from? What's the threat, etc. And I would explain away what the comics told me. And I said, what I could see them doing because of the Adam Warlock involvement with the Infinity Stones in the comics, I thought that what they might end
Jordan,
up doing.
can you hear him anymore?
Yeah, I got him.
I'm here.
I can't hear anybody anymore.
Uh-oh.
No, it's a you thing.
Oh that's your guys are back now.
You need
Okay.
headphones.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, so can I talk like this then? I'll just.
What if I talk like this? All right, go on. Yeah.
So when Thanos.
Amazing.
So, let me get back on the train of thought. Editing is needed here.
Not at all. None.
We're raw.
Zero.
We are raw. We're raw, dog.
Zero. It's going up today, man.
We should just hit the live button right now.
Yeah, just go.
Yeah, so I had people asking me questions about it, and I said where I thought they might take it was because Adam Warlock wore the Soul Stone in his forehead and sort of became part and one with the Soul Stone. That was part of the story as to how he was able and capable of organizing the assaults and distractions that inevitably took Thanos down. And I thought they were going to portray that with the characters they had available and make Vision this de facto character because of him having the Mind Stone. They didn't end up going that route, and I was surprised when they killed Vision off. I'm digressing from my point, but I'm just saying. So when you have this ultimately powerful character, because Thanos, even without the Infinity Stones, is more than capable of going toe-to-toe with the likes of the Hulk or Drax the Destroyer, and not Drax from the movies, Drax from the comics.
Yeah. Yep.
This is drastically different, right?
Huge
yeah, because
difference.
they nerfed Drax drastically in the movies, right?
Well, in the movies, what did Drax do other than
He was comic relief.
Exactly, comic relief, and you know they call him the Destroyer. He didn't. What, he destroyed one thing, and that was that monster from the second movie.
Right. And even then, not single-handedly. Like, I mean, he ended up dealing the ultimate death blow, but it was still a team effort.
Yeah, Drax is probably hands down the most physically threatening of all the Guardians of the Galaxy. He's crazy. Powerful.
Well, and if you follow the storyline of Drax throughout the years, he's been killed and reborn multiple times, and he was conditioned and reborn to be a Thanos killer. He was designed to be the destroyer of Thanos. so that he had that one mission, and he lost intellect in his reincarnations and stuff. Anyways, um,
Mm-hmm.
I guess my ultimate point and my question is, how could they have done better by not jumping the gun? And yes, it took some steps to get there. So they didn't, they didn't immediately blow their wad in the first movie. That's not my take. My take is, if you're going to escalate and build to a big bad, you need to, and if you intend on continuing on down the road with subpar characters, because they also put in the top tier characters of the best selling Marvel comics over the years, with the Avengers, with Cap, with Iron Man. The only thing they were missing, obviously, were the X-Men related titles, because they didn't have permission or rights to use them. But if you're going to go that route, there are multiple other villains that you could go to and still have that escalative threat to move the stories beyond the final confrontation of getting everyone together. And you could do it more than once. Whereas, where part of the problem right now is obviously the woke agenda, the pushed diversity, inclusion and equity, the diversity, as I call it,
Oh,
DIE
I like
versity.
that.
Um, so you've got that right now in what they called Phase 4, and now beyond, because they're supposedly in Phase 5. So you've got that already taking away from people like us, who have been longtime comic collectors and readers. And okay, apparently nobody wants to hear from 40-year-old white guys. And here we are. Um, you've got that as a hurdle to overcome, whether they see it as a hurdle or not. The economics and the market are telling you that it's a hurdle. But you compound that with lazy, boring writing and uninteresting stories, with increasingly, even when it was the characters we wanted to see, the Iron Mans, the Captain Americas and whatnot, there was increasingly a level of lack of concern for any harm to be done, because there were several incidences where someone could take an ultimate hit that could level a city, and they brush it off and get back into the fight, or they're fine. Even Rhodey, who was paralyzed, was fine.
That wasn't Rhodey.
Anyway, okay, Jordan, why don't you tackle this? What do you think?
So I've said it many times, and
Well, then why say it again?
this,
All right, see you
right,
guys.
right, we're done. We're done. Uh, in the scene, which arguably is my favorite scene in almost any movie, when they're all the portal scene, right? We all know it. I love it. But
On your left.
on your left, right? There's a part where Wong or Doctor Strange looks at Wong and says, "Is that everyone?" And Wong says, "What? You wanted more?" And it takes me right out of the movie, because there we are. They're all there, but they're not all there. We're missing the Defenders. We're missing the X-Men for obvious reasons. We're missing the Fantastic Four. We're missing Adam Warlock, who was already set up, and you brought it up earlier. There's when you bring that line in, and your brain starts going, you're like, yeah, I did want more. And when you bring in Thanos, and like you said, it's almost like that. When you call it Endgame, right? You look at the sales after Endgame, right? And the viewership after, and the casual fan, they believe that Marvel ended after Thanos. So, in short, it was too soon for Thanos. What if, instead of Infinity War, when they did it, what if they had slipped in, the She-Hulks and the filler, right? Because Phase 4 was filler. right? Like nothing happened in Phase 4 except introductions of mediocre characters that not many people gave a crap about. If you had sprinkled that stuff in Phase 2 and 3, and we still haven't had Thanos yet, I think we'd be seeing a different MCU for sure, right? Because you know what? It would have been pretty damn cool to see She-Hulk and Hulk going after the Black Order together as a team. I think that'd be a pretty cool scene, right? So yeah, maybe they did blow their wad, right? Because again, and I think Paul and I have talked about this. Thanos' motive wasn't about the saving of poor people, right? It was he wanted to impress a girl, right? Ultimately, that's what he did it for. He wanted to appease Lady Death, and by giving Lady Death the most amount of death he could ever think of, right? So, in short, yeah, of course you can stretch it out. But we had never seen anything like this in film before, which is pretty magical, right? So I don't want to hate on it.
And that's why I said, like, they definitely did right by a lot of things, and they did what they could with the restrictions that they had. Because, and you bring up Lady Death, that was one of my talking points leading up to Infinity War. Was I wondered and speculated how they were going to create the motivation for the character without having the, because the Marvel universe in the comics, you've got this vast selection of characters that have been built up, as we've discussed before. They've been built up over time, and as an avid reader or even a casual reader, you can become aware of, even if you were just a fan of the Thor comics, which I defy you to find one, but if you were
Just the Thor.
just the Thor comics.
You only read Thor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
okay.
if that was your title of choice and you only collected Thor and you're like, Thor's my guy. Like I don't even care about Spider-Man. The Hulk, who's that?
Yeah.
If you were only a Thor collector and reader, you could
Yep.
still become aware through crossovers and team ups and whatnot. You could
And to
still
people out there, sorry, 1 second. To people who are going to watch this, if you could prove that you're only a Thor fan, we will get Duke to draw you a Thor free of charge. We'll send it to you, but you have to prove
Absolutely.
it.
That will happen. You will get one of the small character cards he does,
Yes.
and it will be of Thor. And but you have to somehow prove that
That you
you are
only collect Thor.
you only collect Thor. Good luck with that.
if you can prove it, I have a $5 gift card to a local restaurant.
All right, keep going.
That was my business card, by the way.
Yeah.
So, yes, he'll cut your brick. Don't worry about it. So, I forget who was talking.
You were talking. You were talking.
Yeah, so if you only collected Thor, you could still be aware of the grander universe within the Marvel
Correct.
realm. You knew that there was more going on, because even within Thor, he still goes universally. He wasn't always isolated to Earthbound stories and wasn't always just with the Avengers. When you read the pages of Thor, it was very much the cosmic universe of the Marvel
He
universe.
was
So
the glue, right? Which is what they did with
tying it in, so you've got
right?
your Earthbound and then you've got your cosmic, and he's that link. Yeah, there
Yeah.
were a couple of people, but yeah, you're right. Sorry, and I interrupted.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I was completely.
Keep
agreeing
going,
with you.
Jordan.
He was the glue, as he was in the movies too. Actually, I was gonna say it's the Guardians, but Thor to the Guardians to Thanos, right? Guardians were that exact, blood. They were the bloodline to Thanos.
So here's part of my point, and to lend to your point about the Phase 4 is there are fans of She-Hulk, both in the comics and the show. I don't understand it. It's not my thing, but fine.
Fair.
I don't begrudge it. You can have it and you can watch it, you can read it and enjoy it, and I've got a couple of issues, but I was never into what they were. It wasn't a story that interested me. I appreciated when they brought her in because I find there always was a lack of good female characters and good
They're
female
all in the
character.
X Men.
Yes, and the
They're all
majority of
in
them
the
are to be
X Men.
found in the X Men at one time or another. Um, so my point is you could be a fan of She Hulk in the pages or on screen, and fine, but you cannot feasibly argue in comparison. Standalone, maybe if we didn't know about the grander MCU, you cannot, or at least I haven't heard a cogent argument to justify that show on its own or as a part of the collective is a good show. It doesn't contribute to the grander scheme of things. It doesn't on its own. It might be fun. It might be quirky. It might be silly. But you're still.
But what's
It
the point,
doesn't.
right? What
Right.
is the
What
point of this show?
did it serve as good character development? Did it serve as good storyline? Did it serve as feeding into the grander universe of characters? I don't think so. So
Uh, it killed Hulk. That's what it
yeah,
was there for.
and it perverted Hulk, and it, it starts with them changing the origin story, and this was one of my beefs about superhero movies and things from long, long, long time ago. Why change things that don't need to be changed? And I think we talked about it here. Even the old Hulk TV show, they changed the name of the main character from Bruce Banner to Dr. David Banner merely because an executive found the name Bruce to be too flamboyant.
Yep.
And you have decisions like this being made that that are ridiculous on the surface, or if you dig into them they're just out and out ridiculous, and they're often one person's opinion when you've got, as we've discussed before, you've got um, decades of building these characters and going through multiple hands, but the hands are supposed to complement each other. They're supposed to be shaking and sharing. They're supposed to be contributing to the bigger picture, not making it your mark so that you get remembered by, like we said last week, killing off an iconic character or any character just so that you can have your name attached to it. It's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be a team that drives not only the characters for our purposes, but the business forward. So you have a situation where you have Loki, you have She-Hulk, you have um, all the other abominations, this Falcon and Winter Soldier, all these shows that do nothing for what they've already shown that they can do. And I liken it back to Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians was never not even a D tier comic. It was something that you may have picked up every now and then, or if they did a footnote and linked it in another story, then you would pick up an issue. But I defy you to find somebody that has a vast and hasn't acquired it post the celebration of Guardians because of the movies. I defy you to find someone that was an original in the time Guardians comic collector. I have maybe about 20 of them, and that's over the span of collecting for almost 30 years plus. So, and I didn't actively collect them when I was collecting the hardest. The the way that they were able to take such a dry, innocuous title of rotating characters, similar to the X-Men, there were multiple iterations of that team, and they were able to take either what they had the rights to or what they felt would sell to the audience and put together a group, but they made it one of their biggest
Enjoyable.
hits.
They made it fun. They tied it into their bigger picture. That's what made the fact that the Guardians were so closely tied to Thanos, and we had the sprinkles of the Thanos, and excuse me, Thanos was actually in the first Guardians movie, right? Now, whether they did that to be like, this title's important, but each character was done properly. Not properly, that's not the right word, but each character was a piece to the Guardians puzzle in the film. Yeah, we said that Drax is different, but this ragtag Muppet people coming together that should not be together, yet somehow they are a team, and they have to go up against Thanos. Well, not in their movie, but you know what I mean. Um, Made it work, right?
Is there of the three of us that are here currently? Is there any one of you that can cite a reason that the Guardians one in particular is not a great superhero movie?
I'm gonna use, for just to play devil's advocate, because I love it. But I'm gonna use my friend's reason why he does not like it. The dance off, face off. He hates it, right? And when Star Lord starts dancing, and Ronan's like, "What are you doing? It's a dance off, bro." It took my friend right out of the movie, and he hates the movie because of it. So that's the thing I will throw to you guys.
I can see that. I disagree with it. I think they built the characters throughout the course of the almost 2 hours. I think it was, or maybe it was a little more than 2 hours. I think they built the characters and showed you who they were, so that payoff is relevant and relative to what we've been experiencing with these characters. It made sense for what they built.
I agree.
Was it goofy and silly? Absolutely. But that's what they were going for the whole thing. Sorry, Paul, do you have an opinion on it?
Your question is how does the Guardians production, the first movie, is not fit into a superhero genre, so to speak?
Yeah.
Well, my question specifically was, do you have any reason or deniability that it's an excellent superhero movie on its own?
Yeah. Okay, yes. Besides Groot, they don't have superpowers?
Well, Drax kind of does.
No, he doesn't.
He
runs around with knives.
Right, but he's supposed to be superhuman.
He can survive in the void. Okay, yeah, but how is he strong? I don't know. He's a big guy, but I don't see him superhumanly strong. I haven't seen him pick up like a tank or something.
You're right,
like that.
And again, that comes back to what we said. They truly nerfed the character.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, exactly. And then I'm not trying to say that it isn't a heroic movie. It isn't a great science fiction movie. It isn't a great comedy. It isn't a great entertaining movie. It's a great movie. Mm-hmm. But your question was superhero.
Yep.
Right? Gamora is a great ninja, kick-ass, martial artist, assassin kind of girl. All right? Rocket's a great, over-the-top, weapon master. Yeah, tech wizard. Yep. All of them. Everybody there, but none of them have superpowers.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Except for Groot. Except for Groot. Groot's the only one.
I've never heard that before, and it's a great point. I never even.
Well, but neither does Batman. Would you
You're right.
Would you consider Batman a superhero movie?
Batman doesn't have a superpower.
Neither does Captain America.
Captain America does have superpowers.
No, he's the peak of human conditioning.
Exactly. And is in all areas except for intelligence.
No, in the comic books,
Batman has the greatest intelligence in the world. Number one, he's smarter than any human being in the world, except with the exception of Lex Luthor. All right, he is smarter than any human has ever been. That can be defined, and his willpower is greater than any humans has ever been. Those two things alone allows him to truck with people like the Justice League, right? It does. Is Gamora the greatest fighter in the Marvel universe? No.
Well,
right?
But
I've seen.
bill her as the most dangerous woman in the universe.
Yeah, exactly. But is she though? And to counter your point, and we're going with the movies now, not with the comic
Yep.
books, because that's this topic.
Yep.
I've seen Captain America drive a motorcycle at full speed, flip over it, grab the motorcycle, and whip it over his head at Nazi soldiers dozens and dozens of feet away. That's
Bro, hit the
superhuman.
gym. You could do that.
I believe it. I just not doing it right. I just got to keep
need
going.
a few more
All
days
right,
at LA Fitness.
exactly, I can do it. But my point being is that shows that Captain America is superhuman in the movie context. When he's able to run as fast as a car, shows that he's a superhuman. There's very little that shows that the Guardians of the Galaxy, with the exception of the one time that Drax decided to go for a surfing in outer space, that they have any kind of superpowers. Right? I don't see them flying. I don't see laser beams coming out of their eyes. I don't see any of that kind of stuff. Like none of it.
Wait.
Groot, on the other hand, is
Gamora
different.
picked up a ship and used the gun to fire at Nebula.
True.
I don't remember that scene.
That's
forward.
in 2.
That is in 2. She picked up the ship because it was crashed. She tore off the Gatling gun.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So they gave her super strength. In what
That
movie
was the
was that?
second
2.
one. And then
Okay,
obviously
Guardians
by
2.
the third.
But we're talking about Guardians.
Yes, we are.
We were talking
Yes,
about
we are.
Guardians 1. There was no sign of any kind of superpowers. Even Drax going for a surf in the void, that wasn't in number 1.
Correct. And by the third, Nebula
So-
was off the hook with all her upgrades. And
Exactly. Well, I'm just saying. At number 1, it's a great science fiction movie. It's a great sci-fi movie, but superhero, no. But they're able to tie it in very well with superhero movies. The only reason why is it a heroic movie? Yes, but what's the difference between a heroic movie per se and a superhero movie? Is something outside the bounds of what is capable by human beings, right? And Batman shows that regularly, and Captain America does as well. Just the way he can throw a shield, no human being can throw a shield like that. It's not even possible, but he does it, right? So there are things that go outside the bounds, even in the comic books, but in it translating into the movies, yeah. So I don't know. That's is very debatable to me if Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is a superhero.
Yeah, no, it's
movie.
a good point. I haven't really considered it in that realm, and I hadn't really thought about that aspect of it. And I'm sitting here as you're saying it, and I'm trying to rack my brain in specifically just isolating the first movie.
Yeah.
And trying to think of ways in which any of them demonstrate anything other than what could be considered peak physical conditioning. And yeah,
Yep.
You're right. I mean,
We don't even find out that Quill's a Celestial until number 2.
right.
Now, do they expand it and do they
Right,
become
yeah, no, but we were
superhuman?
talking about one,
Obvious.
so
Yeah.
I get your
Yeah,
point.
exactly.
So my ultimate point, though, behind bringing up that movie is that they took a bland ass comic
Yes.
and a bland ass bunch of characters and made it fun and interesting, and even, shall we say, the normies reference that movie when you ask a lot of normies what their favorite or what they like about the Marvel movies. Often that's one of the first, at least in my experience, that's one of the first movies that gets mentioned. And people had a good time going to see that movie. And they've watched it multiple times. They reference it. It's part of pop culture at this point, where there are multiple references from that movie that get made. So if ultimately, my point being, if they're able to do that with what was always a bland ass comic, then how is it that they dip so hard and they can't even make unless it's purposeful, and that's a whole different rabbit hole we could go down. How is it that they cannot and not consistent? Because you could argue about consistency, because for the most part, phase 1 through 3 was consistent. There were a couple of blips and fumbles. Most notably, people like to cite
But there was a story
Age of Ultron.
we knew. I like Age of Ultron. People
I
need
liked
to-
it too.
People need to
It
get off
wasn't-
of Age of Ultron's dick because
It
I'm
wasn't
sorry.
okay. But in ranking the Avengers movies, I didn't even put my thumb up.
I know, that was interesting. Was that? Did you get the magic ball?
No, I hold on. Let me see.
Apparently, if I go like this,
Hold on. Nice. But stop doing stuff. Let me see. Let me just try again.
okay.
See if I got some power.
You got. We're about to become superheroes, folks. Here we go. Nope, we're still Guardians of the Galaxy.
No, I guess my hand just happened to wave.
Maybe your hand did something. Yep.
Yep, must have been.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway.
So they were consistent with a couple of minor things here and there, like I said, but then all through Phase 4. And how many projects are Phase 4? You've got Marvel and Wanda. Or
Phase 4 was bigger than 1, 2, and 3 combined. Let's just
Yep.
put it that way.
It was
with more content. You mean?
More content.
Right.
Yeah. More titles. More titles. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got the Black Widow movie, you've got WandaVision, you've got She-Hulk,
Morbius.
you've got Morbius. Things that
Moon Knight.
like I haven't even seen half of them.
I won't.
Right, exactly. Whereas, as a longtime fan, I was there every early screening. Like I wasn't
Yeah.
waiting till release day. I was
And
finding
that's the
opportunities.
Everybody was.
Uh-huh.
It became a pop culture event. And so this is going to go back to too soon for Thanos because
Thank you. We got to bring that back because we're running out of time. Let's go.
When Thanos was done,
Come on, why is it not working?
the casual viewer, the pop culture event ended because the story's over. We can see the ruins. We can see, you can pick up after, but not everybody is going to because they were there to see the Avengers kick Thanos' butt.
Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna finish this because we are running late and we're gonna run out of time on this one. But the thing is, what the problem was, I don't think it was because of Thanos. Thanos was a cash grab. He's a name. Okay, he's a draw, especially with comic book guys like us. Okay, and they know that's where the money is. Okay, they can sit there and try to appeal to normies till the cows come home, but they know that we are the bread and butter. Okay, they always are. Just like I'm getting a Hulk omnibus. Okay, there ain't nobody with blue hair that's getting a Hulk omnibus.
Right.
We know who's buying the Hulk omnibus. We know who's buying it.
And even though you probably already own multiple titles within that omnibus,
Yep.
you're
I'm still gonna get
re-spending
it.
money. You're rebuying things that you've already
Exactly.
purchased from them, and not just little bobbleheads
gonna
and,
take-
and vinyls and all that crap.
Nope. They're going to take my money and then they're going to use it to produce stuff that hates me. But regardless of that, the problem that they did is they didn't lay the groundwork for what comes after.
Right.
They didn't. Okay, so I understand where you guys are coming from, but let's be honest. When you, for the first time, saw all the Avengers on the screen at one time, we all know we
Yep.
lost it. We did. Yep. We've been waiting for this forever. And the way they did it right, just like in the comic books. Here's an Iron Man comic, movie. Okay, here's a Captain America comic,
Yep.
movie. Here's a Thor comic, movie. And we're bringing it all together. And we're going to throw a couple other people in there
Yep.
as well and tie it off with a bow. And we lost our shit
even in
for it.
that first Avengers circle. Sorry, I just...
Okay, yeah, we got to wrap it up. But the thing I'm going to try to say here is through all of that, just like they were lacing Thanos through it all, they could have started lacing what comes next.
Well, it's like when you
They
play
could have
pool,
done that.
you want to sink that ball, but you're
Yep.
setting up the cue ball to be in a position for your next move.
Exactly. So while we were losing it and we're chomping at the bit because we all wanted to see Thanos, regardless of whether it was premature or not, we wanted to see him. So we wanted to see the Avengers. We wanted to see Thanos. Yes, it was premature, but while they were doing that, why were they not setting up the next big thing?
Yeah.
Now I agree, Thanos is huge. What's the next big thing? Galactus? But they had to at least start laying some groundwork down. Do you know what I mean? I think that it would have been much better for them to do something along the lines as Ultron was the big bad at the end of, he's the thing at the end game, right? Not in the middle of the whole damn thing. At the
It was an age of Ultron, not a week of Ultron.
Exactly. And a weekend. All right.
Weekend at Ultron.
Laced throughout those movies, we have more stuff about the
Ultron,
the cosmic
holiday
cube,
special.
the stones, all that kind of stuff. Tesseract, everything else going on. What is so funny?
The Ultron holiday special.
A weekend at Ultron.
Oh my goodness! He's got the Santa hat. All right,
But they could have even brought Thanos in.
Yep.
And had a movie, or had him, in the realm of Batman movies where you got multiple villains. They could have had the Ultron movie, and they could have had Thanos in trying to get in there, taking advantage, and then they end up losing ultimately, the bad guys. But then you have Thanos coming back, and he's doubling his efforts by finding these Infinity Stones. You could have done an entire movie on that. But and that would have introduced a lot of cosmic characters that you could have worked into the story that built the bigger threat. Instead of having Captain America holding his hand, that's even viable.
Oh, okay. We don't going to get into that. But even more than that, Chris, they could have been lacing Thanos throughout series. Mm-hmm. So first series, right, is the Avengers. Second series is the Fantastic Four. Third series is X-Men, or in whatever order they're going to do. But remember, this was the first time something like this had been done. Right, the first time. That's right. Exactly. But if they had done something like that, picture after 9 movies, now we begin Infinity Gauntlet.
Well,
right now we begin.
Was focused around a stone.
It would be 20 to 30 years later, and now they're hammering it out. Do you know what I mean? It would be huge.
And RDJ would have been in a wheelchair.
Well. Dude, we have to have a little bit of recasting, okay? Sorry, that has to happen. Right. It's just the way it is. All right? But especially when we're talking about that kind of longevity, you're just printing money for 30 years.
Correct.
For 30 years, you're printing money. And you just lace things through it. Everybody's going to be starved. Is this the one where Thanos finally does his deal? Because we know we're all waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Mm-hmm. And then finally, after all of it, Thanos says, Avengers, Fantastic Four, X-Men, you're all my bitch. Let's do it now. Right? Yeah, and it would be done. We could die on that day and we'd all be happy. There it is.
Yep.
We'd say, this was the movie. We're old men in the chair. We die in those chairs and we're fulfilled. There it is. No regrets when it comes to those kind of movies. But to defend Marvel, I won't defend Disney. But to defend Marvel on this, it was the first time they had tried something, and Thanos is a cash grab. We all know it. He's a name that's going to draw. That's my point, guys.
The average person doesn't know Thanos. They do now.
Yeah, but like I said, we're the bread and butter. Mm-hmm. Right? They're the icing. They're the icing on the cake.
I have avid comic fans that were never aware of Thanos, friends. I know avid comic book fans that
they weren't Marvel fans then. Is that
that's accurate? That's like saying you don't know Darkseid in DC. Like what? Come on.
Know of him, but they've never collected any titles, read any titles where he was involved. Because let's face it, it was limited involvement in many cases. Like you didn't pick up X-Men and read about Thanos coming.
No, I know. I agree. But when the Infinity Gauntlet came out, I can't think of anybody that wasn't invested.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I don't care. Like you may not known of who Thanos was, but you damn well wanted to then.
So let me ask a question. Because
we got to wrap it up though. Last thoughts.
Was the Infinity Gauntlet the first of its kind in comics as well?
In what way?
That kind of threat level.
No, Crisis came out before it.
Well,
Crisis came out
even
before?
Secret Wars with the Beyonder. The Beyonder was
Huge.
omnipotent and threatened all of existence
Fair.
if you
Yep.
weren't like doing what he said and that kind of stuff. I think it was, to my likening, I think it was the most serious one because the Beyonder, as much of a threat as he was and as powerful as he was, it was still done in sort of a comical kind of like
He was a kid.
yeah, and it was very.
Just want to play with his toys.
Yeah, and it was very goofy, and there was a lot about it that just didn't have the same threat level, even though
Fair.
it had the potential to, because he was that omnipotent and he was, the being from another universe with all the power of that universe, and they had never experienced that before, but it just still didn't have the same weight.
Well,
so, to a certain degree, you might be kind of right.
yeah. What I want to say though is I want to hear what you guys think. All right. I want to know what the people that are watching think. I want you guys to tell us was Thanos the best thing since sliced bread? Was it too soon? Was it premature? Was it just right? I don't know. You guys let us know what you think.
Continue the conversation below.
Exactly, because that's where it really matters.
If they had handled it differently, would you still, 15 years in, would you still be an avid going to the movies watcher waiting for that new buildup? Would you have carried over, or are you happy because the term superhero fatigue has been tossed around a lot to make excuses for why things are dwindling? Would you have been an avid paying moviegoer to keep going if they were still putting out better stories and building to a bigger thing? Or are you glad that it finally ended and you can sort of relax and you don't have to be putting in that time and effort?
All right. Good question. We want to know what you guys have to think. All right. We're going to be wrapping it up. This has been another episode. Nice! Another episode. The magic continues. Another episode of Comics Conspiracy. It was a mini episode that turned into maybe not so much of a mini episode. But it is an important one. It was a really good topic today. All right. So please let us know what you think. And thank you for joining in.
I'm Human Ramp, and he's PC Paul.
All right. So, all right. Remember, it's not political, though, at all. Not at all.
No.
Everybody, have a good day, though. And thank you for tuning in. Okay. Bye. Peace.